Welcome back to the Turn the Music podcast. My name is Kyle. This is episode 24. We are on measure 9 of The Spirit of Music. And to discuss that, we have CJ. How are you, sir?
I'm doing all right. I'm
That's
tired, but
good.
I'm doing all right. It's been one of those weeks.
Yeah. It's been a week.
Yeah. How about yourself?
I'm tired.
Yeah.
So I've been going into work early so I can have Friday off.
Oh,
And the
okay.
new guy at work, he doesn't get Monday off because he's like a temp.
Okay.
So to help him out, I came in early this week so he could get paid for being off on Monday. So I've been going in early all week. And then, as you know, I'm obsessed with this manhunt going on in Pennsylvania. So for those that don't know, there is a manhunt going on in Westchester, Pennsylvania. And my friend lives there. So she's about 8-ish miles away from this manhunt. Things are picking up and have been picking up since about 6 o'clock tonight. So it's on that monitor right there.
Let's just put this in perspective for the listeners. We're recording this on a Thursday night.
Yep.
So when this episode comes out, it is very plausible that this person has been captured.
It's possible, but he has been on the run since the 31st of August. So
yeah, so we're just prefacing the fact that
who knows?
at this moment, while we're talking, there's a manhunt.
Yeah.
Hopefully, he is captured by the time you're listening to this episode on Tuesday, on the Tuesday that it drops.
Yeah. They are closing in on him tonight. It looks like, which is better than they were doing last night. But I have no faith. So
some of the stuff that you're telling me, I'm just shocked.
Yeah,
like it's crazy.
So anyway,
I wonder when or which TV streaming service is going to get this as a as a movie.
Yep.
And once the strike is gone, this is going to become a movie within a year or two of once the guy's captured.
Yep.
Yeah.
So we'll see.
That's crazy.
So that's what I've been listening to for the last week.
So no,
what
so
have
no
you been
music?
listening to? Yeah, no, I've been police scanners and watching
like, not even like music in the background.
No, because I'm watching 2 live streams and listening to the police scanner. So I've got 3 things going on at the same time. I've got no.
You have a police scanner, or you downloaded an app?
Just a website,
and you can listen. I'm not trying to sound ignorant because I've never done it before. Like back in the day, we had a physical scanner, so that's why I knew. But like, you could go on a website now and just listen to police scanners.
Yep.
I didn't realize they were public in that sense. Oh, that's very interesting.
Yep. So you don't get like everything, but you get a fair amount.
That's interesting.
So,
I, on the other hand, have not actually listened to much music. I've been on my audiobook kick.
So for those of you that are joined for music, sorry. If you'd like, I can pull up the police scanner for a couple minutes. So you can listen to that.
We are doing music on our live shows. I mean, we've been doing the book for now. But yeah, no, I've been really hooked on audiobooks. I mean, this happens to me. And I've been listening to Exemplary. It's as a book 1 in a series of it's focused on this one guy, and I think I mentioned in the last episode, it's done in such a way where the guy's talking to you, like he breaks the fourth wall.
Yeah, you mentioned it last week, I think.
And the voice actor who does it is phenomenal. And some people like, oh, it's such an army base, but because it is, he's an army grunt, but it's so well written and put together. It's funny. Like, you don't feel like you're listening to a book. You feel like you're listening to a movie or something. It's just so well done. And there's like 15 or 16 books in this series. So I'm listening to, I'm like halfway through. And then I found out this guy narrates other books. So I went through Apple Books, and I found like 3 of them that were 99 cents. I'm like, download. So that's my music.
All right. Well, there you go. So shall we get to the book?
Oh, that's right. The music podcast is doing a book. No, I'm joking. I'm totally joking. Yeah. So, this episode came out a week and a half after we did a live show in honor of Jimmy Buffett. And the reason why I bring that up is that I was thinking about this earlier. I feel like we talked a little bit on the live show how his music is very original,
Mm.
like very original.
Yep.
And you mentioned that he doesn't steal from himself in a sense.
Mm-hmm.
Like he's got a sound
Yeah.
that's his sound,
Yep.
but as you used John Williams as a comparison, John Williams will steal lines from his compositions that he's
Yeah.
done for the different movies, which I think is cool because it kind of like connects them in some
Mm-hmm.
odd way.
Right. It's like
But
almost like the John Williams universe, you know.
right, exactly. Yes, no. But it was a good comparison because Jimmy Buffett, if you listen to his songs, they don't.
Right.
The only thing that connects him is his voice,
Mm-hmm. And
his
the
guitar
vibe, kind
playing,
of. Yeah.
and the vibe that he
Yep.
gives. And I was thinking about this as because we're reading this book about Victor Wooten and his journey and struggle with music. And you and the stuff that we were listening to by Jimmy Buffett is a guy that was a pilot and a sailor and
Mm-hmm.
is writing songs and stuff based upon his some of them crazy experiences like getting
Yeah.
shot down in Jamaica.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
and and I think it's interesting how I'm curious of what his musical struggle was.
Mm.
Did he have a musical struggle?
Right.
Because if he's telling stories with his songs, he didn't really have a musical struggle. You know, like it's just interesting the dynamic from Victor Wooten to Jimmy Buffett to Bella Fleck and the Flecktones, like how these
Mm.
individuals are. I think I connect a lot to Victor Wooten's journey
Yeah. I do too.
and I'm going to say struggle as
Mm-hmm.
well.
And I think I don't know much about Jimmy Buffett, so this might be just me being ignorant. I don't know, but like, I think one of the reasons that we connect to Victor so much is that I think with him. By the way, his birthday is on Monday, so happy birthday, Victor.
Oh, that's right. It's September
Um,
11th.
yeah.
Yeah. So
So
when this comes out, his birthday's passed.
yep. So I think for you and me and Victor, like for us, you know, music is kind of life almost.
Yes.
I don't know that Jimmy Buffett had that same thing because, I mean, he was a pilot. And again, I don't know what he did other than music, and music is a big part, obviously, but not everyone. I remember talking about this in high school with my choir director. My choir director would only see doctors that were musicians because he
Okay.
just he just trusted them more.
Right. Right.
But
Right.
like as a musician, like the doctor is their main job, but music is a big influence. So I think it's almost like that phrase, you live to work or you work to live. It's
Right.
like music is either your life or it's part of your life. And I think I don't know that Jimmy Buffett was the person that was like Victor where music was his life.
I
He
think for Jimmy Buffett, life was his life.
Right. That's
I
kind of what
think
I
he
mean.
lived I think he lived for his life, which I think is fantastic.
Yes.
And a lot of what you read about him even up until the day he passed is that they said he lived his life.
Hmm.
Like he did not shy away
Right.
from doing the things that he wanted to do, which is
Hmm.
why he built the empire of money that he built was not really just to live this luxurious life. It's just so he can live his life the way he wanted to.
Right.
And I think that's the difference. I don't think that makes him a better musician than Victor
No,
Wooten. I
not
don't
at
think that.
all.
I
I
think
mean,
that the approach to their music
right.
is different. And yes, I do tend to lean. I'm more with Victor Wooten
Hmm.
because music pulls me forward versus and it sounds weird to say this life pulling me forward.
Right.
Yeah. No, and it was just funny because I read through this chapter again that we're going to talk about, and I was like, oh, it's kind of ironic that we just did that, and it's
Mm.
like it's parallel. Their lives are parallel, but for completely different journeys.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right, we got a little philosophical there.
Yeah. Well, we do that every
Uh,
once in a while.
yeah, sometimes we know what we're talking about.
So when we left off, our trio had gotten into a taxi and it felt kind of weird. Um, and that's kind of where we left it. So things pick up there. Basically, what happened was they realized that the taxi driver was wearing headphones and they needed to get out of there fast. So Victor realized that this was going on, told everyone they had to get out, and Ollie actually didn't shut the door, so he was able to get out pretty quickly and pulled Seiko with him, and then Victor eventually got out. Unfortunately, Seiko did not get her drum out, so the drum has disappeared at this point. Um, but yeah, it was kind of a crazy scene as they pulled away from the attempted to pull away from excuse me, pull away from the airport. Um, and then
Airport? Oh, that's right, because they dropped the
yeah, because
car
they
off
went to
there.
drop off there.
I was gonna say bus terminal, but that leap I'm
Right,
thinking ahead.
you're thinking ahead.
Yeah.
So they went back inside to the baggage claim because they thought it'd be safer to be around more people, and that is so they get in the airport, and at this point, I guess the ambiance of Music City took over, and Ali and Seiko were looking for the pictures of all these musicians, and there were no pictures to be found. They didn't understand why, and Victor was trying to get them to focus on what needed to happen. And at one point he says, so the airport was unusually quiet. There were a few people present, but the sounds of country music that usually played throughout the airport were absent. The only semblance of music was the rhythmic patterns of the moving baggage carousels. I knew we had to get out of there. So even in there, he felt something going on. I don't know why I highlighted that, but because we always talk about how rhythm is everywhere.
Isn't that a Paula Abdul song?
Isn't that the rhythm is going to get you?
Oh, Rhythm's Gonna Get You. Well, I mean, come
Or is
on,
that or is that Gloria Estefan?
Oh, maybe that's Gloria Estefan. That's Gloria
I don't.
Estefan.
I have no idea.
I get confused sometimes. Sometimes. No, but
um.
you're right. Yes.
Yeah.
And we
So.
talked about that, right? We talked about how like you caught it once when you were driving,
Mhm.
and I caught it while I was like in Home Depot and my wagon was like
Yep.
tripping out.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yep. So they hop on a bus, and it was a short bus ride. Victor fell asleep because he hadn't been sleeping much with all the confusion, and the plan was to make their way to Victor's friend's house, and hopefully his friend would give him a ride home. Um, and then they get out of the bus, and they are approached by a man, of course, wearing headphones. And they didn't realize this at first, but Seiko pointed out that he had no footsteps. Even though he was walking quickly towards them, and you would normally hear that sort of footstep, there was no footsteps to be heard at this point. So Ali and Seiko try to get out of there, and
There's something I do want to mention because
yeah,
I
go
think
for
it
it.
plays a factor.
Yep.
When they were getting out of the taxi, Victor Wooten dropped and rolled.
Yes.
He hurt himself. And I
Yes.
think that that's important to state
Yep.
because I think because that plays a factor moving forward.
Yes, and he hurts himself
Um,
again. So.
and then he hurts himself again, but
Mhm.
he's weakened at this point
Yes.
because
Yes.
he fell and he kind of got banged up from that
Hmm.
fall.
So
I,
as this man is approaching, there is a sound that Victor hears and a blinking light. So it's the blinking light of a crossing signal. He said it was the first sound that he had heard. Um, so he started to approach that light.
it was
And
the first musical note that
yes,
he heard,
yes,
and I think that's interesting too because we talk about rhythm being everywhere, and he's
yep,
noticing a musical note
yeah.
everywhere.
Yeah, he said it was the first musical note we'd heard since arriving to Nashville. I welcomed the sound. I dropped Seiko's hand and walked toward the light, as if it were a beacon in the night, a savior of some sort. Recalling Seiko's technique, I unfocused my eyes and used my peripheral vision. My whole body became more receptive. The sound caused a tingling sensation in my scalp as well as on the bottoms of my feet. I don't know why, but it was as if the crossing signal had become my own sign of hope. Fear had receded as I stood captivated by the sound. I vaguely remember hearing Ali's voice. I didn't respond. What struck me about this passage was um, the first book, where he did the exercise of standing in front of the speaker and trying to feel where the vibration was coming from and spinning around with his eyes closed.
Right.
And I don't know whether Michael knew this back then, but it was all kind of training for this moment. And Michael said in the first book, when he was playing that gig, like all the gigs I've done up to this point were training for this gig that I'm about to perform.
Right.
So it's almost like like all the training that Victor had done was leading him up to this moment here, because he was, you know, not only was it the sound, but Seiko added the whole vision part of it. So being receptive with his whole body as opposed to just being, using his eyes to see. He was trying to use his whole body to see and use his whole body to hear, which I thought
Right.
was interesting.
And because he says he closed his eyes, he stood erect, my arms at my side with my open palms facing the light, like reuniting with an old friend. The signal and I welcomed each other. Although it was mechanical, the sound felt alive. And it's interesting. And I'm going back to something that you brought up in an episode. Her name's Seiko,
Mm-hmm.
and you mentioned the fact that Seiko is the name of a watch brand.
Mm-hmm.
And being that she's all based on rhythm and time, is that the reason why she's titled that? And I think it's interesting because at that moment he drops Seiko's hand.
Mm.
Like it's like he let go of time for a moment.
That's interesting.
Because at that moment he gets entranced to this red light and the sound,
Mm-hmm.
and he lets go of everything around him. And it made me think about Michael Crichton wrote a book called The Andromeda Strain, and it's almost like the Manhattan Project situation where it's about these group of people that are underground in a lab, and one of the characters cannot look at a red light or they become entranced. And it play like at first you're like, oh, who cares about that? But it becomes a very important factor
Mm.
throughout the book. And I think it's interesting that this is a red light and it stops him.
Right.
And it's that. And it's just there's these like little things that you start going, I wonder if that was on purpose.
Yeah.
uh,
So then he hears a voice that says, "Listen, listen to me." And he didn't know who the voice was. And the voice responds, "If you must ask, you are in grave danger." And then he realized that it was the voice of music that he had heard um, years ago. And he says, "She had done so much for me, but had I done enough in return?" And we talked a little bit about this last episode when we are talking about um, the shame that they had felt. And I know we talked about, Victor's shame was leaving his parents in that, kind of that state. But I think on a bigger scale, it was the fact that he had never done what he said he was going to do, was to help music. And that's kind of how the book opens up. So
right.
that's more, I think, more of his shame, in this book.
Oh, I agree.
So
I think that that's exactly what it is that
yeah,
he didn't honor what he
right.
said, because he does say he felt a mix of elation and dishonor.
Yep. The music says, "You must," and then she fades away, and he tries desperately to get back in touch with music, and he remembers the words of Michael that says, "Try easy, my friend, try easy," which we have brought up many, many times.
Oh no, hold on one second.
Holding on.
How did that happen? All right. I wasn't talking, but my thing stopped.
Okay.
So I'm going to hit record again,
Mm-hmm.
and then we're going to have to do a clap.
Sure.
And then you just go back into try easy, my friend,
Yep.
because luckily I wasn't talking, so it shouldn't be anything
Sure.
crazy. I'm going to hit record. Oh, no, stop. Okay. Hold on a second. How did that happen? My space bar button must be that sensitive. I must have tapped it without realizing it. Is there a way to turn that off in Luna?
I don't know.
Okay, I'm gonna look
I think you
into
can
it.
edit your shortcuts.
Yeah, I could probably do that. All right, I'm recording. I'll count down to 3, 2, 1, and then we'll
Okay.
clap, and then
Mm-hmm.
that should help you, right?
Yeah.
Okay. 3, 2, 1.
Okay.
Cool.
So the voice said, "You must," and then faded out. And then Victor tried to figure out what she was trying to say, and felt that he was losing control. And that's when he remembered what Michael had said to him: "Try easy, my friend. Try easy." And we brought that up many times in these podcasts, and I think it's really important. And that's kind of the basis of meditation. It's so easy to overwhelm yourself when you're meditating, but the way to meditate is to relax and let things come and deal with them that way.
Well, and I think it's that it's reminded himself to focus on what he's focusing on
Mm-hmm.
at that moment, is that one sound, that light or whatever. So back to
Right.
what you were saying, how he was using his technique that he learned with the speaker and
Hmm.
just putting his focus back on that one thing. Because, like you said, for whatever reason he was taught all that stuff, it was to get him ready for what's happening now.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep. Exactly. So then music finally responds by saying, "You must feel me at all times and in all things, even in the beeping of a crossing signal. That is important. If you don't," and her voice faded into silence. And that's when Ali interrupted by saying, "Victor, we must go." And they eventually start heading out. And they ran away. And then, out of the darkness of the night, um,
Batman. Oh, sorry.
Batman came. Um, he heard a scream, and Ali ran away. And as he stood there, he watched a man in a dark suit come into view, seemingly from nowhere. The darkness of the night, in the combination with his fatigue, made it difficult to focus. He shook his head and wiped his eyes. The man was still there. And then all of a sudden, a van pulled up, and the van basically grabbed Ali and Seiko and drove away and left Victor, by himself. And this is where you get into, um, the real despair that he feels in this book and chapter is that, now he's lost Jonathan, who we had just met. Now he's lost Seiko and Ali, and he just doesn't know what to do, and he gets angry. Again, kind of like the first book where he got mad at Michael so many times for kind of beating around the bush and trying to make him figure things out by himself. And again, here he's by himself. He needs to figure things out for himself. So he says, "I was alone. There were no cars or no people, no lights or sounds. Even the wind had abandoned me." And if you remember early in the book, the wind is what brought him to Jonathan. So even that has now left him. And so the crossing light was flashing again. So he tried to run towards that flashing light in hopes that he would hear that sound again, that music was still there, but he heard nothing. And then, in his frustration, he said to himself, "Music always seemed to make me calm. Even fear would subside when she was around. I wondered if the opposite was also true. Were my extreme fear and frustration pushing her away, keeping me from hearing her? I needed to control my feelings. Music once told me that she needed to be felt at all times. She also alluded to that fact that I would be in danger if I couldn't always feel her." There's so much in there that I resound that's the wrong word, that I can't speak words.
Resounds in you.
Sure, I guess that's what I was trying to say. I don't know if that's the right word, but
Well, like
um,
resonates.
that's the word.
There we
Resonates.
go.
All
Yes,
right.
I can stop now. No, so a lot resonates with you.
Yes. So because there's a lot of times where I'm in situations where around people I have high anxiety, and a lot of times if there's music playing, I'm able to focus on that, and that is able to kind of bring me back down to normal and kind of handle
But
the situation better.
you'll never be normal. So
No, that's true. I will never be
yeah,
normal. I know that.
to your baseline, but never normal.
Yes. Closer to other people's baseline. How about
Isn't it?
that?
No, so, but I totally get what you're saying because there have been times that I'm in the office, so much is going on around, and like the best way for me to kind of get away from the background noise or the background chatter is either put a set of headphones in my ears or focus on one thing that might like pay attention to another sound that's unrelated in order to disengage from all that.
Hmm.
How's the manhunt going? Because I can see you looking at the monitors.
There are a bunch of people just walked into the frame, and I was like, "Who are these people?"
Yeah. So
So,
just for those who are watching YouTube and you'll see Kyle periodically look up to those monitors, that is
yep.
why. And
So if
those that
I'm
are
looking up
listening to
this
us, I'm
way,
watching Kyle and he's looking left and right up in the air, and you
so
know
yeah,
that he's looking at the manhunt. A
this
manhunt.
is the manhunt. This is to make sure that the recording is still going on, and then this is you. So, and then this is the book. Oh wait, that's the book. So
There's the book. There's the book.
I am just
So okay,
sensory
wait.
overload.
Let's connect this for a second. So you're
Yeah.
talking about how music resonates with you, right?
Yes.
Everything
Sorry,
okay? Did you fall?
the screen fell asleep, so I had to.
He's like, no, no, no.
No.
So you talk about how music resonates with you. All right, you, uh, this manhunt started when?
Um,
You text me what
So
on like Monday or Tuesday? I
so
think it was
that's when
Tuesday.
I really kind of got hooked on it. But it started on the 31st. This is day 8.
Okay, so and the reason why I bring this up, as you've been watching this,
Mm-hmm.
okay, and you're engrossed in it,
Yep.
it's very intriguing,
Mm-hmm.
especially that you have a friend that's nearby the area,
Right.
and it's not like she's scared of it. She wants to go on this manhunt. It
She
sounds like.
does.
Okay, so my thing is this, and this is on a level of being a musician.
Mm-hmm.
Have you at all sat there going, "I wonder what music would go really well with this in the background?"
I haven't because I've been so
Engrossed?
like engrossed. Yeah, I am in the phase of like I need more information. Like I just
Okay.
need, and I haven't been like this since the Boston bombings. That was the last time that I was
Right,
really
right, right, right. Yeah,
kind
yeah.
of sucked into this. Checking Twitter, and I got back on Twitter for this.
It's not Twitter, it's X.
I went to twitter.com
S
and I still got what I
Social
needed.
media platform
Yes.
formerly known as Twitter.
So, my Twitter
It's now
account
a
works.
symbol.
I know, whatever. It is
No,
what it
but
is.
so it's you've gotten so engrossed in this
Mm-hmm.
because me, on the other hand, like, I'd be watching and be like, "Hmm, I wonder what music would be in the
Right.
background of this." Like, would it be heavy metal? Or would we have, like, this, like would it be something from, like, a horror movie or a mystery where it's like,
Yeah.
did it like, it's Jaws, did it,
Mm-hmm. See,
it's
but see, the thing is, I'm so overloaded with because I'm watching two different streams, and then the
right,
police scanner. So it's like you got Fox News, who's got their sources. You got this other guy who's streaming it, who's got friends in law enforcement feeding him information, and then you got the police scanner all going. It's like I don't have time to process music and think about it.
but you're processing 3 separate things at one time.
Mm-hmm.
Could you process 3 separate songs at one time?
I don't know. I do, however, when I practice my scales, I do practice one scale on one hand, another scale on another hand. So
So different scales.
I'll play like C in the left hand and E in the right hand. So yeah.
And when you're doing that,
Mm-hmm.
is it a complete separation of your thought process when you're doing it, or is it because you've done it so often, it just happens?
Um,
I feel like that's a bad question. Is it so natural and subconscious to you that you could just pick the scales and go, or
no,
do you have to really
I have to
focus on
think
it?
about. I have to really focus on it.
Okay, so you do that more for like mental development.
Yeah, and hand independence.
Okay,
Because like when you're practicing scales, like the idea is that you play. Um, the idea is for hand unity, right? So you want to try and make each note with each finger on each hand sound the same. So like if you're playing, like your pinky is usually playing at the same time as your thumb. They're
right.
two different fingers, two different muscles, two different hands, but you want to get the exact same sound, the exact same attack, that sort of thing. Um, but when you add the extra element of the other scale, you're now adding independence because sometimes the fingering is different. Like
Okay,
there's a sequence when you're playing the same scale and it's the same, but now when you start adding different scales, now it's different notes, different flats, different sharps,
right, right.
different movements, different rotations. So there's a lot more that goes into it. So it's almost like, one of the things that you learn as a pianist is one of the first like real tests as how good. That's a bad way of putting it. One of the first pieces that you would learn to really kind of set you on your way are Bach 2-part inventions, because what they do is
I
it's
remember learning
basically,
those actually. Yeah.
yeah, and like your right hand plays one thing and then your left hand plays the exact same thing but at a different time. So it's training independence in your hands. But like if you think about the way most music is written, like the left hand is kind of this bass kind of harmony thing, but
Right.
with the 2-part inventions, it's melody and melody at the same time that creates a harmony. So it's like there's a lot to think about.
So that being said, can it be any 2 scales?
Yes.
So they could be well, I don't wanna say unrelated because in a sense, they're all related,
Hmm. Yeah.
right?
So what I
But
try to do, because so part of what I try to do is try to isolate different things. So I my ear is pretty good. So I know that if I listen to a scale, like I know what's coming up next, and my fingers go by what I hear. So I'll try to pick really dissonant scales. So I'll play like F and F sharp at the same time,
well, that's what I was
or
saying,
C
like
and C sharp, like
right, oh,
just so
yeah.
it's like I mean, they're completely opposite scales of each other, so it might be cheating a little bit, but you know,
But like to develop that,
yeah. So I can't rely on my ear, so I have to rely on,
that makes sense.
you know.
Yeah, so I was curious because I I have just difficult separating my hands playing piano in general. So the
Mhm.
fact that you're doing two separate scales is just like,
Yeah.
oh, okay, yeah. So was this something that was taught to you or expressed to you by a teacher? Is this something that you were like, let me try it. I want to see if I can do it myself.
I had a teacher in high school who, in fact, my choir director, I would always listen to him practice. He was an Eastman graduate, and he never played two different scales at the same time, but he would start on different notes. So he'd always do them in thirds. So,
Okay.
like, if he's playing the C scale, he'd start with C in the left hand, but start on an E in his right hand. I don't know why he did that. Maybe just to change up the different fingerings. I don't know. That way it's not the same, the same
But he
grouping of
didn't
fingerings.
change the
He didn't
like
change the key. It was always the same. Like if he was playing C, he played C in both hands, just started on different notes.
okay. So
So
okay.
that's how I
So
started. And then I went, well, if I'm doing this, I wonder if I could do two scales at the same time. And I started. And in the beginning, I'll be honest, I started with doing only C in the right hand and then doing every other scale in my right hand. And then
makes
I
sense.
flipped them and then started doing different scales. So,
That's
and part of
interesting.
it is that
I
scales are boring for me. So this is now a way to make
right.
the scales more interesting and,
So
you
for
know,
all you piano players out there who are looking for something to practice, don't do
I don't,
this.
I
No,
don't, I
try.
don't say, I don't know if it's worthwhile doing because I'm not very good, but you know.
But no, but the thing is I think because I play saxophone and clarinet, there's no
Hmm.
way, and you've played trumpet and French horn and a few other instruments.
Hmm.
There's no way to do that with
No.
these instruments unless you put both in your mouth at the same time, which even for me is hard because I need two
Hmm.
hands on one of those instruments.
Yep.
You know,
I
like I
have done
can't
trumpet and trombone, trumpet and French horn at the same time.
but you could do that because you only need the three keys.
Yep.
It's still I would that's still a pain in the butt because the embouchure has got to be different in both of them, right?
Yeah, and you have to like because it's a different place. So it's here and
Right.
here.
Right.
But the cool thing with the French horn is it's left hand and the trumpet's right hand, so it
Like you can
works.
make that right. So,
Yeah.
but in a sense of even if it's not something you mastered,
Hmm.
I'm sure it has helped you in your playing,
Yeah. Probably. I don't
you
know what
know?
it's done for me. I've
Well,
never made my students
but
do it
here's the thing, you're
because.
saying probably, so it probably has, you just don't know
Mhm.
what it is.
Right.
But there have probably been things that you've done that maybe in the past would have been more difficult, whereas you're doing them now and you're like, "Oh, this is easier now." And you
Hmm.
may not can't connect it to what it was, but it could be because you were doing the scale
Could
thing,
be. Who knows?
you know? So, I mean, I know it has not helped you when working on the car and pull the roof off the top
No.
of your car, but that's a different
That's true.
story.
That's very true.
So, you were reading the fact that, um wait, did I turn the page too soon? I did. We went off topic, not in a bad way, but we talked
No.
you were talking about how music calms and we were talking about music and all that stuff.
Yep.
And then what happens after that?
So Victor says, I was alone and music seemed to be my only hope. I looked around, the streets were bare. Not knowing where to go or what to do, I sat down on the street corner and leaned back against a pole. It was a toss up between getting up or giving up. The crossing signal, my beacon of hope, sat dark and silent just above my head, seemingly mocking my every presence. A musician, but you can't even hear a crossing signal. The thought was loud and clear. And this one hit me because, excuse me, the weekend that I had, like everything I did was a failure. Like everything I tried to do went wrong. I started working on the Jeep. Turned out those load output converters that I bought, both of them were bad. So I spent the morning trying to fix that. Realized they were both bad. The next day I went to make a birthday present for my mom. Jigsaw died. It's like, like there goes that. Um, Went and I returned a whole bunch of stuff at Home Depot. My safety glasses were on the top of my head. Went to the bathroom, took my hat off. Safety glasses fell on the toilet. I was, like my mom came over Monday because she wanted to make hamburgers for dinner. I only bought hamburgers enough for one person, and I went like
Oh, I thought you were gonna
everything I
say
had done.
she came over and said, "You're really not my son."
You were adopted.
You were adopted, and your birthday's coming up,
It is.
13th.
Yep.
Oh. When is your mom's? She's
28th.
she's the 28th, right? Yeah, I knew she was the same month. I just couldn't
Yep.
remember the date. Um, but so do you feel that that is a subconscious thing because one thing happened, you expect a domino effect? And like, even though you're not thinking about it, just because things started happening, you're just
Not
like, "Okay,
not in the beginning,
okay."
but after, like, the 3rd or 4th thing, I was like, "Yeah, this like, what else is gonna go wrong?"
Right,
Like,
like, it's like Murphy's Law just
yep,
kicked in, and I
yep,
there's no way to get out of it,
mhm.
yeah.
Monday night, I was in a car accident. I don't know if I
Were you
told you
really?
this. Yeah, it was. It was very minor, like, I was at a stop sign, in fact, the same stop sign I was or the same street I was on without my other accident, and a lady just bumped me. Like, I'd been hit harder in bumper car rides, like,
Okay.
barely touched the car, but, like, it was just, like, one more thing. It was like,
That's
no
crazy.
damage, but
No damage,
the New
probably
York and
more
me
to
did
her.
come out, so
Huh?
the New York and me did come out. So, which we can discuss offline. But yeah,
But so that's crazy.
yeah.
Don't go to that stop sign anymore.
It's a street that's it's like it's the way home. Like it
I know.
is on my way
I know
home.
you showed me, and I was like, yeah, no, I get it.
Yeah. I mean, I can go around that and go a different way, but it's another like 6 or 7 minutes to my ride, and it's like, well, I don't want to do that. So,
Right, and if you're hitting traffic, it just makes it worse,
yep.
yeah.
So,
Where were we? So he said the words reverberated in his head,
hmm
made himself upset, threw a rock at the light, shattered. He questioned music. She abandoned him. He started yelling at the top of his lungs. He started crying, feeling hopeless, and went back down on the pavement. He started feeling an unpleasant feeling. He had an unpleasant feeling throughout his body, and he knew someone else was there, but you know, he just knew that the man with no footsteps was close. He took a little bit of energy and he said, "I'm sorry, please forgive me," to out loud, but he doesn't know why. He heard it again, but a different crossing signal. And he made an attempt to stand, to go across to that crossing signal that was doing the same thing, that sound, but he felt vertigo, fell down the curb, fell into the street, and then the black van sped into his direction. And then it goes further. There's a man in front of him. He tried to stop, but his legs couldn't cooperate. He stumbled, and then the man stepped off the curb. He was wearing headphones, and then He had some fear. He was screaming. I'm trying to like. I don't want to like go deep into it, but I'm trying to pick out
hmm
those parts. Uh, he said there's nowhere to turn, and then he just saw his face was in full shadow, but the red reflections from his rapidly blinking headphones caused him to look even more menacing. This is the guy that was in front of him. And then he was kneeling down. He removed something from his pocket. More blinking lights. He was about to put a pair of headphones on Victor's head, and he said he felt hypnotized, and his eyes got heavier and heavier, like he was getting tired. And then he says, "Music told me I needed to feel her at all times, but I was too scared to feel anything other than fear. As a final effort, I tried to sing. No sound. I tried to hum. There were faint vibrations, but I heard no sounds. My ears had become numb. I was losing the battle. In my mind, I pleaded for help. And then a melody formed in the back of his mind. And with all his effort, he was able to increase the intensity of it. He said it was beautiful, but it was unfamiliar.
and I think that going back to that statement,
Yeah, yeah.
you know, um, if you remember back in the first book, there was, I guess dynamics is probably one way to do it, but this was a different kind of dynamic. This was
Right.
energy. It was, more intense. So that was
But I mean,
again
that's a dynamic.
more
Yeah.
training from what Michael did,
Right,
preparing
right.
him
He
for.
put his focus on, yeah.
Yep.
It's all the things that he learned, the
Right.
listening, the yeah,
hmm
he sank into the melody, letting the vibrations go throughout his body, and it basically startled the man that was trying to put the headphones on his head. Regaining sense, getting out of that hypnotic situation. Um, he finally opened up his eyes. The man was backing away. Then he was startled by footsteps that approached from behind, and he was able to see a black mask covered the eyes of this man that was coming towards him, and he quickly grabbed and subdued him.
Interesting that he heard those footsteps.
Right. I'm glad you said that because I was thinking the same thing. Like, it's interesting how he didn't hear the footsteps of the man with the headphones,
Hmm.
but he heard the footsteps of the other man. Was the other man with the headphones far enough back because he did recede?
Could be. But
Or
if you think about it, like
like
these
when you find
people,
out what yeah.
right? So like these people are the ones that are taking the sound away.
Right.
But why were these footsteps heard?
Right. Are they
And
bringing
I
the
think
sound back?
right.
Yeah. No, I get
Or
what you're
does this
saying.
person know something on how to
Right.
combat this?
Right.
Who
Right.
knows?
Right. He did say one of his assailants wore headphones and the other a mask. So I guess he's talking about the same two, right? And he moves slowly, the other moves amazingly fast. The man with the headphones vanished, and the masked man put him in the van. He said he was an athletic person, but he was so tired and he yelled with all his might, but he just couldn't do anything.
Yeah, and for those that don't know, Victor used to do a backflip on his birthday every year and
I wonder if
posted to
he's going to do
social
one
media.
this year.
He hasn't done it the last several years.
He hasn't.
He has not,
Oh, okay.
but he used to.
Interesting. Well, I mean, the past several years was the pandemic,
That's true.
and everybody physically hasn't really been themselves because
Mm-hmm.
I'm not saying that people weren't working out, but those that typically some
Yep.
kind of fell out of it. So I
Yep.
wonder if that was part of it, unless he
And
got injured.
well, yeah, that. So he also has a I think it's a neurological disorder he's been dealing with.
Right. I remember.
So
Okay.
I don't know if that's part of it too. And
Possible. Yeah.
he's over 50 now. You know, he's approaching 60.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Which is weird.
I know.
Like, it's weird to think that way because
Mm-hmm.
I don't really think of age.
Right.
Like, yes, someone gets older, their looks may show that, but I don't like go look at the person and be like, oh man, I can't believe you're 70. Like, I was just like, I'm
Mm-hmm.
like, oh, you're 70. Oh, I had no
Right.
idea. Like,
Mm-hmm.
it's just one of those things. Um, he said he heard muted laughter, but didn't think it was anything funny about the situation. He was the they put a dark knit cap over his head. He became claustrophobic. And then he said, "Take what you want. I don't have anything, but take it anyway. Just please, please let me go." And the gentleman replied, "Don't talk, relax." He said that it was a gentle voice. How am I supposed to relax? How am I supposed to the last thing I remember before I blacked out? Now, he doesn't state why he blacked out. I forget. Does it state ahead why he blacked out? I think it's just from all the anxiety and the
Yeah.
stress and what he put his body through.
Mm-hmm.
It was just time for him to conk out
Yep.
because they don't hit him or anything like that. It's not
No.
like they
No.
back him on the head.
But they did
Uh,
say that he did see like I think it was Ali that just kind of go limp once the man grabbed him.
right, that's right. The man went
So,
right, right, right. That's right.
but it doesn't say
Uh,
that for him.
and he said the van stopped. Doesn't know how much time passed. His head was still covered. He could feel the pain in his arms and legs. Heard the door open. He just remained quiet. Being upside down and blindfolded made it difficult to gather information. He wasn't sure what was happening. It was a new experience. He's never been kidnapped before. So he pitched himself. And then that line, because the measure is the measure 9, the chapter is called Turn to the Light.
Hmm.
And then the
Which we
um
didn't talk about, but
right. No, 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 no. But it clearly states in
hmm
the middle, like that's what he does. And that what is it? The subtext, the tagline is if I was still alive, I wasn't sure how happy I was about. I was about it.
hmm
Which is very interesting.
yeah,
Like it's just it's like almost like he's in the middle of a like who cares situation.
hmm
Which I guess at this point anybody probably would be like, what's the point?
right.
What's the point? So measure 10 is next week, and we'll give you a little heads up. It's called Homecoming. You can ponder that,
Not
figure
the
out
Robert
why it's
Randolph song.
huh?
Not the Robert Randolph song.
That's what it's it's interesting because the next few chapters are a lot of like all the stuff that we talked about all the training that he went through with Michael and all that stuff. It's
Hmm.
like that's kind of where we're going. Like we're starting to
Yep.
see the training become a part of his life as Michael expected it to, just probably later than anticipated,
Right.
or when it was supposed to happen.
Mhm. Well, they do
Mhm.
talk a little bit about the timing of it.
No, I know, I know. I'm just
So.
I'm trying to keep it mysterious until we get there because I'm still following the thing the from the first book where he says what's the line about everything being true and not being true?
Mm,
We don't know.
yeah.
We don't know how much of this actually happened or what experiences that he had close enough to this for him to write the story.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like not to sound funny, but a lot of what's going on right now potentially could have happened,
Yeah.
right? Like
Mm-hmm.
potentially. I think the only thing that I'm not saying is far fetched, but could be the one thing that didn't is like the loss of sound completely.
Right.
But at the same time, you know, if you were hit or you were knocked or something, you could lose your hearing for a
Mm-hmm.
moment.
Yep.
So like we don't know like where this is all like so it
Mm-hmm.
could all be real. It's just so it's interesting how, you know, and it's happening in Tennessee and Nashville. They're weird over there anyway.
Sure are.
I'm just for those of you who live in Nashville and Tennessee, I've been to Nashville. I love it. So I'm not,
And I
I
want to go, so
do you really?
I do.
Oh, that's right. You did talk about that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I have to say it was a cool trip and everything like that. If you go, and I think I mentioned this before, go to the Buttermilk Ranch. It's run by my cousin's wife, and she's a fantastic baker. It's delicious.
Nice.
I've never had that, but I've had some of her stuff while they lived in New York.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
All right, so let's call
No,
it quits for the evening, and
yeah, I guess so. So you can go back to your manhunt.
yeah, go back to the manhunt and edit the
so,
podcast.
long story short, Twitch, Fridays and Sundays. Fridays at 8, Sundays at 7:30. Check us out. Join us. If you want to know what we're going to be doing, you need to follow our social media on
Well,
Twitter
maybe
slash
because I
X.
don't always know what I'm doing. So
Well, I'm just saying when we're going on, like
yeah,
just to have an idea. So Twitter, X, same program, Instagram, follow us on Discord, have a conversation with us. We are on YouTube as well. So if you're listening to this and you want to see some of the stuff that's happening on camera in a few weeks out, you will see this on YouTube. And Kyle also uploads the bloopers and the funny parts and some of the stuff that you don't see in video, the random things that happen as we're getting set up. So check that all out. You'll hear the closing note, which I think we need to update because I think it's a little outdated, but there's a link tree link in our show notes. Click that. That'll show you everything. And that's all she wrote.
have
Until
a good
next
one,
week.
everyone.
Have a good one.